asked my audience to send in their craziest work stories. Never work at McDonald's. I only worked at Mackey's for 4 months, but they were the worst 4 months of my life. I feel as though like every person I know that has worked at McDonald's has only worked there for a few months and said it was the worst few months of their lives. And now they just have that beeping, that horrible beeping noise in their head for life. There was a love triangle between the 37-year-old business manager, 29-year-old on-site manager, and 16-year-old newer hire. All men, by the way. Oh, that makes it worse. Because not only are they noncing, they're also gay. In which after the business manager's ex-fiancée, who he had a child with, came in one day and slapped the 16-year-old for seducing her boyfriend, the business manager wasn't even fired, but he was asked to move to another branch. Sorry, she came in and slapped the child and went, that'll show you for seducing my 37-year-old boyfriend. Also, for a week straight, we couldn't serve fizzy drinks because there were maggots infested in the syrup pipes, but we weren't allowed to tell any of the customers. The inspectors said the maggots were probably there for at least a week before anyone found out. So sorry to anyone who got maggot-infested Coke with your Big Mac. What the fuck? Okay, this would probably be a good point to say that these are unverified stories that I have had sent to my email. I cannot confirm the legitimacy of this story. I've just had it sent to me and I'm just reading it out. I just want to clarify that. I don't want to get sued by the McDonald's Corporation. One of my other managers had been convicted of attempted murder but was still working for some reason. Then on an overnight shift, his drug dealer came in and they got in a fight in which he almost killed both the drug dealer and our poor 67-year-old dining room worker who was a month away from retiring but then couldn't because he got fired because of the fight even though he didn't cause it. Wait, so the upper like corporate management or whatever heard about a fight between an attempted murderer and a drug dealer and went, yeah, let's just fire the 67-year-old. Let's just fire him. That manager was then convicted of attempted murder again, but got out and is now in the Navy. Anyway, don't work somewhere just because all your mates work there, and definitely don't work at the second worst Mackey's in the country. I mean, I've heard a lot of stories from people who have worked at McDonald's. None of them have been that bad. The fact it was that bad probably comes from the fact that you worked at the second worst one in the country. Yo, George, I used to work as a pub chef, and one day we got a new general manager in. He turned up after probably binging too much Gordon Ramsay videos and started moaning about everything. Oh, he definitely watched loads of Gordon Ramsay kitchen nightmares videos in preparation for this job. He changed everything right away and emptied one of our freezers, leaving it in the middle of the kitchen. He was a bit of a dick, but I wasn't prepared for how this was going to escalate. He left the pub early afternoon and was nowhere to be seen. A few hours later, he returns and he's in a foul mood. One of the waitresses told me that he stunk of booze. He scribbled all over our paperwork and started claiming he was sacking everyone. My 14 and a half hour shift, 14 and a half hours. That's a bit long for a pub kitchen, right? How long are you making food for? My 14 and a half hour shift finished after he made me close the back of house by myself. And I'd had enough. I handed in my notice there and then and dipped out as quickly as I could to the sounds of him and a waitress screaming at each other. Apparently, he had blamed everyone but himself for me leaving and then proceeded to fall down the stairs to the cellar because he was so smashed. He went unconscious and was removed from the pub by police. My old manager then called me at 4 a.m. to tell me what had happened and asked if we could just forget. Wait, this was over the course of a fucking day. Sorry, I didn't clock that this was over the course of a singular day. I just assumed it was like, I don't know, a week or a month. This was over the course of one day. My old manager then called me at 4 a.m. to tell me what happened and asked if we could just forget that day ever happened, and that's what we did. We never heard from the guy again, but I hope he's okay and got the help he needed. How the fuck did he get hired as the manager in the first place? Back in 2022, Fall Guys was really popular among my co-workers. The manager at the time was really chill and would often host rounds of Fall Guys when everyone was done with their work. We were always set a surprisingly little amount of work for the hours we had to be in for, so this was every day. Anyways, the whole office would be playing Fall Guys on their work PCs, and the manager would often try and have incentives such as small bonuses like £10 per game for the winner. Everyone was really competitive and would try really hard to win as there was financial incentive, so they played dirty by grabbing onto the other player in-game and whatnot. Every day though, the manager raised the prize to 20. Oh man, this is not going to end well if he keeps raising the prizes. Oh, it's going to bring out some horrible competitive spirit. One day though, the manager raised the prize to £20 for this one game. Eventually it got to the finals where it was the honeycomb game. I got to the final 2 people and then one of the guys grabbed grabs onto the other player, which meant he missed the jump onto one of the hexagons and was eliminated. Normally, everyone would laugh it off if they lost, even if it was a dirty play, but this guy was clearly angry. To be fair, I mean, game's a game, but I would be pissed. After a few seconds, he starts screaming his lungs out in... Okay, that's embarrassing. You can't do that in your place. So, imagine coming in the next day after screaming at someone over Fall Guys. You couldn't show your face at work again, in my opinion. After a few seconds, he starts screaming his lungs out in rage. People were trying to hush him, but he fully rips his desktop off the table and hurls it with mighty Spartan rage at the guy who won. It hit his head and he fell unconscious. I'm surprised it didn't fucking kill him, because he got some 10-kilo PC thrown full force at him, and everyone was shocked. As if concussing a man wasn't enough, he turns around and charges at the nearest person to him, which was a short, skinny intern who he plowed into. Why? What did they do? He plowed into the nearest desk. At this point, everyone rushed and tried to restrain him, but he was both 6'3" and 100 kilos and also filled with rage. Did he have roid rage? I was like, oh, what the fuck is going on here? Why did he turn into the Hulk when he lost at Fall Guys? I mean, I know there was 20 pounds on the line, but I don't think... I mean, never show this man a casino. It will ruin his life. Eventually, he was restrained and the police was called. Fucking hell. But after that, Fall Guys was banned from our office and the guy who got his head caved in made a full but long recovery. He still has a dent in his head plus scars from the computer hitting his head. Surely that other guy should end up in fucking prison for that. He ended up suing the company, but it was handled privately. I think he won £100,000 and was transferred to the Birmingham branch. But being moved to Brum is more of a disservice. Yeah, he got fucking punished for that. He got punished for having his head caved in. Jesus. They should have sent the guy who threw the PC at him to Birmingham. That would have been a worse punishment than prison. The company obviously wanted to keep this as low profile as possible and managed to get no news reports made on the matter. That's actually really impressive how the news didn't get hold of that. In fact, we had to sign an NDA about the whole situation. This one's just titled Secondhand Stores Get Interesting Donations. There are certain things that, if donated to a charity shop, will immediately get thrown out unless the employees don't know what it is. We had this regular who only ever came to the store near closing, and he was the loud type, if you see what I mean. One day he stops me and shows me some contraption he found in the electronics section, asking what it's for. So I take a proper look at it and conclude that it's probably some kind of BS avant-garde cooking utensil. He goes loud as fuck, no, it looks like a penis pump, and then proceeds to explain in great loud detail how it works with gestures and everything, and he explains the pros and cons of it and the pain. How does he know the pain levels of this? Did he buy it? Did he buy it? He's basically detailing his intimate life and, let's say, shortcomings. Oh, mate. He's going, yeah, I've got a really small cock, so I've used loads of penis pumps before. And I'd say the pain level, you know, when you reach maximum girth, it's about a 7 out of 10, but it's worth it. Shortcomings to some random charity shop employee. I looked up the logo on the thing, and yeah, he was right. Oh, mate. Yeah. Did no one... Sorry, right. I feel as though I'm not a man who uses a penis pump. I just want to get that off the bat. But I feel as though I would be able to spot one. How they look has been made popular by things like Austin Powers and stuff like that. Surely someone who works at the shop must have gone, yeah, that's a penis pump. I didn't really know what to do since it was just me and a new employee. My supervisor was on a break, so I just left it on the shelf and texted my work friend about it. But the next day, my work friend texts me while he's on shift and FaceTimes me so I can identify the penis pump for the manager. Awful way to wake up. According to him, they made everyone in production team look at it to make sure they never pass something like that again. But honestly, I hadn't actually thought of that question. Honestly, who the fuck donates that old penis pump to a charity shop? Okay, this happens to me and my sister. She works as a pharmacist. Our mother was busy doing I don't know what. I wasn't paying attention, and my dad went with her. So I had to go with my sister, who we'll call Melissa. Someone walks in that day, looks around 30, we'll call him Walter. He walks in with a prescription in his hand and gives it to Melissa. He asks for medicine. The prescription is real, so my sister gives it to him, but the lid on it is pink. Walter asks for a new one that isn't pink, and my sister says that they all come with pink lids. Yeah, but in Walter's defense, pink is for girls. All right, Walter, clearly not a girl. And if any of the lads saw Walter walking around with a medicine pot with a pink lid, God, Lord knows what they'd assume. They might think he's gay or something. He freaks out, starts muttering to himself, and he suddenly throws it at her and then points a knife at her. Here's the thing. It's a knife that you would find in those, like, Play-Dohs. Also, it's just a little, like, plastic yellow knife. Why does he have it? I don't know. My sister calls someone, and someone comes to take him out of the building. As he's walking out, he starts pulling everything off the shelves that he can over a pink lid, but, like, in a depressing way. I'm just standing there watching everything, trying not to laugh. I think he was justified, to be honest. There was a guy who worked with me and did absolutely nothing most weeks till he got a job making sandwiches for the same company. I got a call from my boss to see if I had served him that day. Turns out, after being 5 hours late to his his shift, he'd also grabbed a Fanta bottle and put it up his sleeve to steal. We have short sleeve shirts. He got fired the same day. How the fuck? That's very... I mean, I think he wanted to get sacked. Who the fuck tries to slip a Fanta bottle up their sleeve when you're wearing short sleeve shirts? Yeah, this guy wanted to be fired, and he achieved his goal with flying colours. The butcher incident. God, it sounds like there's going to be a fucking murder here or something. When I was 16, I got my first job working in a butcher's in my local market, which was owned by a husband and wife. When I started there, everyone was really nice and friendly. The job wasn't amazing, but it was all I could get at 16. All of the meat for the butchers is kept in a large fridge, and another employee had asked me to go and get some beef so it could be put through the mincer to make mince. However, when I walked into the fridge, I came across something that wasn't exactly what you would call meat. For context, the fridge was a walk-in chamber. It was about 3 meters long and tall, about 2 meters wide, with shelves all down the sides. And when I walked into the fridge, I saw the husband absolutely going to town on his wife while she was sat leaning on one of these shelves that had raw fucking meat on it. Maybe that's what they were into, you know? Maybe that's how they found their passion for butchering and stuff. Also, why would you choose to do it? Surely you just, like, you own the company. You own the company. Surely you just go, let's just nip off home for a little bit. Why are you doing it on a fucking slab of raw meat? As soon as I walked in, I saw this absolutely horrific scene and locked eyes with the husband. A deer in headlights moment, if you will. And just turned around and walked straight back out. I thought, fuck this, and started getting all my stuff together, as I wasn't going to work for a butcher's that is going to do that. The husband ran after me and started apologizing profusely for what I had just seen, but I had already made up my mind. He paid me for the work I had done that month, and I just left and never came back. Luckily, the business shut down. Oh, that's not nice. Oh, they didn't do anything that bad. They were just having sex in the freezer. They were just having sex in the freezer. Luckily, the business shut down shortly after, and I never saw either of them again. Luckily, man, that's so mean. They lost their livelihood. Like, come on, they didn't deserve to lose their livelihood over that. I know they didn't lose it over that, but come on. But if you're gonna get your freak on, don't do it around raw meat, you fucking animals. Yeah, to be fair, they probably shouldn't be. I mean, was the raw meat in like a plastic packaging? Because if so, they're not going to contaminate it, are they? They just probably shouldn't be doing the deed at work. It's a minor discrepancy at worst, I believe. Actually, not. It's probably a pretty major one. Pretty major one, to be honest. Alright, so this person has 2 shitty stories. I was 18 at the time and worked at a supermarket as the front end assistant manager. Basically, I'd close the store if no other staff were there. To set the scene, it's a hot Australian summer's day around 3:30 p.m. We were extremely busy with all the registers open and the self-serve checkout line full. At the time, I was in my office grabbing extra receipt rolls. Then suddenly I hear over the radio, someone has fallen in the self-checkouts. I come running out of my office to be greeted with an elderly woman on the ground in a puddle of her own liquid. Oh, bless, like, she can't help that. She can't help that. It's not. It's a fucking horrible thing to deal with. Horrible, awful. I couldn't think of anything worse, actually. But bless her, it's not her fault. Because it's company policy, we aren't allowed to touch customers because they might sue us. We left this poor, shit-covered woman on the floor until the ambulance arrived to wheel her away. By this time, the smell has spread. We tried to open the doors to let some fresh air in, but waves of shitty air kept hitting us. By this point, with tears in my eyes from the smell, I decided to close the store early. Probably a very good shout, which meant having to ring the regional manager, the big scary boss. We had to get specialist biohazard cleaners in. To this day, the ground is still stained. How fucking acidic was her shit that it stained the ground? Oh, fucking hell. I just know she's never returned. And if she has ever returned, she's seen that stain on the ground and went, yeah, I'm not coming back here. This is a reminder of a very, very bad memory. Shitty story 2. I worked in an expensive ladies' clothes shop where most of the products started at £100 to £200. Obviously, when spending this amount on clothes, you want to try them on. I thought I'd seen pretty much everything stain-wise, fake tan, makeup, even blood. We had seen it all. We would clean and wipe down the changing rooms daily on the closing shift. I was on to the last room when I smelled something funny. Thinking that it could just be the bin chute we had in the shopping centre, I sprayed some air freshener and finished my shift. However, when I clocked in the next day, the smell was worse. I tried to look behind the mirror, nothing. Checked the curtain, nothing. Then I tried picking up the wooden stool. Suddenly, a pair of white trousers tumbled out the underneath of the stool. But these weren't just any white trousers. These had been shat in. Slightly horrified, I went to tell my manager. She came over to look, and I said we should probably put them in the bin and write them off. Wait, these were, okay, right. For a second, I thought this person had come in, shit themselves, and bought new trousers. They've gone in, tried on some trousers, and in the 1 minute where they're looking at themselves in the mirror, they've managed to shit themselves. However, she insisted that with some dry cleaning we would be able to sell them. I don't think so. lightly shat trousers? I don't think so. It is something that keeps me up at night knowing that someone paid £175 for a pair of white trousers that someone shat in. Let this be a reminder to always wash your clothes before wearing them for the first time. I never do. Maybe that's a bad idea. Maybe it's a bad idea. I never do that. But to be honest, it's probably just because I wear exactly the same clothes all the time. Like, I wear Uniqlo black t-shirts and like Levi's jeans, and with those I just pick one like from like that isn't on top. I just pick one from the middle, so I probably don't need to. Super psychotic summer camp co-worker. This summer I've been working for the elementary school day camp in my small town. It's notorious for being poorly managed. Half the staff are always high, been through 3 bosses in 3 years, just general poor management stuff. This year I had a co-worker be out there. He managed to get himself fired within the first 2 weeks. Here's a list of a few of his offenses that pushed our bosses to the limits. Picked up a 10-year-old wrestler style and slammed her down on a trampoline. She sprained her ankle and her mum had to come and pick her up. I'm surprised they didn't fucking sue the camp for that. That's mental. Like, one of the counselors basically beat up a 10-year-old girl. Played a game with them at the lake where he would grab their ankles and pull them under the water for a few seconds. They were yelling and begging him to stop, saying they couldn't breathe, and he kept going. Yeah, this camp needs to be fucking sued and shut down. Holy shit. I know they sacked him, but there seems to be like numerous offenses here that they've just seemingly ignored until there were too many to not be able to ignore them. Told all the kids that I cover myself in whipped cream and make the male counselors lick it off me. Have fun answering those questions from 6-year-olds. Gave kids candy in exchange for messages, mostly the girls. What does that mean? That sounds... Gave kids candy in exchange for messages, mostly the... What's going on there? I feel as though you need to provide extra context for that one. Hits at least one child in the face with a dodgeball each day. Child always ended up in tears on the side with an ice pack. When he finally got the boot, he threatened to sue. I'm gonna be real. I don't think he has any grounds to sue here. I don't think he does, considering he did all of that, and I'm guessing they have evidence he did all of that. I cost my store £11,000 in damages. Not extremely exciting, but certainly expensive. During a slow period, I was cleaning the fire extinguishers, and one of them was missing its pin, so I accidentally set it off. The fire extinguisher was a specific... I mean, it's not... It was missing its pin. It probably shouldn't have been missing. Why was it missing its pin? Probably shouldn't have been missing its pin. The fire extinguisher was a specific one we had that cost £1,000 to replace... Is that how much a fire extinguisher is? A fucking grand? What the hell? However, the foam also went right into the ice machine, which then cost £10,000 to replace. The most shocking thing was I didn't even get a disciplinary for that, which may speak of how little faith our manager had in me. Okay, right, look. I'm going to say this. I'm not moaning, all right? I am moaning. I'm sure this is a wonderful, wonderful story that this person has sent me. But if you're going to send me in stories for one of these videos, please don't send walls of text. I'm basically blind. I will not be able to read this. Please separate it into paragraphs. Thank you. Hey George, I am 24, Australian, but currently visiting London. Have worked 12 different full-time jobs plus countless others since I was 14. Most ended with crazy stories, including one knife fight with a company CEO, stalemate ending. I had another CEO who I firmed his bullying onslaught, seemingly unbothered, until he had a heart attack. He's fine now. The craziest is this. I had my supervisor plant a suction dildo, photo attached. I'm not going to show that photo because I'll get fucking demonetized. In my desk drawer just before a company site inspection in an attempt to get me fired. What he thought the people coming around to inspect would be like, yeah, this bloke is clearly riding a dildo on company time. Obviously, it's obviously not his. Who the fuck would keep a dildo at work? This came after he also threw a dead rat at me several weeks earlier. Photo also attached. I'm also not going to fucking show that. He threw a dead rat at you. What did you do to it? What did you do to this guy? This guy's like your arch nemesis. This whole time I worked there, we had to follow laws of destroying customer information when each appointment was finished, etc. But he ensured he kept copies of everything and could rob their houses and hire biker gangs to carry out crimes in the region, as well as involvement in Australian gang warfare. What the fuck? Essentially, I was sent to fill his van pictured. I can show the van. It's just not a van. It's just a van. It's just not a very exciting picture. I don't know what you need to... I know what a van looks like. Eventually, I was sent to fill his van up with fuel, so I disconnected its tracker, drove it several hours to Sydney to the head office with a box of paperwork and evidence I had secretly gathered over 7 months, and delivered all of the above to his superiors and the police and their respective detective task forces. He owned James May's old car too, which was like to see... What do you mean he owned James May's old car? What, he drove it once in Top Gear? What? He owned James May's old car. They didn't let me keep the van, unfortunately, or his credit card, which he had given me to buy the fuel. I moved state after this, and he was charged. However, over 2 years later, he was back as a site manager at the same site. What the fuck? Every other employee that was there during that time, bar one, quit during the investigation too. Yeah, fair enough. That sounds fucking terrible. Deepfake scandal at work. So I used to work at a small law firm, which name I can't drop for obvious reasons. Okay, I have to ask the question. If you worked at a law firm, I assume you have a good grasp of English. Why have you sent me a fucking wall of text separated into paragraphs? Paragraphs are important. Anyway, so I used to work at a small law firm, which I can't name drop for obvious reasons. However, it's very easy to find the details on the internet. Anyway, the branch manager at the time was always seen as a bit odd, antisocial, and just all around unsettling. There was no concrete reason for this, however, it was understood by everyone he was this way. It is also important to note that we kept files of all of our clients even after they had been either prosecuted or released. This was all very professional, or so we thought until a few years ago. Our company was victim to a small-scale data breach, and amongst all of the private info leaked, it was also revealed that our manager was not only a registered sex offender in his own country, but I've been using the private images and data of our clients to create deepfake images and videos of extreme sexual nature without them knowing. Surely doing something like that lands you in prison for 5 years. Besides this being obviously deranged and illegal, knowing the acts these deepfakes were likely used for instantly validated our previous suspicions of him. He was arrested shortly after, and a few years later I left the job. I've not heard much about him or the incident since, but every now and then I do think to myself, where is he now? Yeah, that's fucked up. That's really fucked up. Holy shit. 8 lasagna stopwatches and being attacked by a chef. I was a floor manager at a pub/restaurant from a popular chain, J.W. Lee's. Not sure if you can name them, but there it is. Fuck it, we name McDonald's. That's fine. Again, this is an unverified story that has been sent to my email. I'm not claiming this story to be true. Just making this absolutely clear. As the floor manager, I worked the bar, kitchen, tables, and sorted bookings, plus the function room and outside kitchen we had. It was the week before Christmas and we were swamped. A table of 8 had ordered 8 lasagnas. Yes, every single person had ordered a lasagna. Okay, right. I feel as though if you go to a pub for food the week before Christmas, ordering a lasagna is quite odd. Like, normally you'd order like a roast or something akin to a roast. You don't order fucking Italian food a week before Christmas at a pub. A table of Garfield, some may say. The head chef was stressing to try and make the lasagna. The table complained it was taking too long, so I said the food should be out in 10 minutes. A man then pulled out a physical stopwatch and began to time me. Finally, the lasagnas are ready and I began to take them out. I finally get to the last lasagna, which I had deliberately left for stopwatch man out of spite. I go to put it on the table, trip on my laces, and dump the lasagna on his lap. Oh no, that's not good. That's not good. If there's anyone you don't want to dump a lasagna on, it's probably stopwatch man. He begins screaming as a red hot pasta sauce is thrown onto his crotch and his family begins to say they are going to sue. I sent my pub manager over as I go to the kitchen to hide. I tell the head chef, hey, just drop the lasagna. You may need to make a new one. He laughs and I have to tell him I'm seriously not joking. They are either going to get a new one or a full refund. The chef, who for this story we'll call Sandy, picked up a knife and said, tell me you're lying or I'm going to fucking... What? Sandy and I had a pretty bad relationship, but I thought he was joking, so I did gum fingers and said, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Sandy screams like a banshee and runs around the counter and instantly starts slashing the air with the knife, aiming to cut my face. The sous chef and pot wash tackle him to the floor, and I run to the nearest door, which is back in the restaurant, screaming. Long story short, dinner service was cut early that night, and I got sent home and sacked for creating a hostile work environment. Sandy got promoted 2 weeks later. What the fuck? What? Wait, you got sacked for being the only sane person there? Okay. Again, this story, it could be a lie. It could not be true. I don't fucking know. It's just a story that got sent to my email. Well, this is one that's a little bit up my street. One of our editors had a sweatshop of workers. So I work for a YouTube channel as an editor. It's very fast paced and there's a lot of us. We hired a new guy a few years ago and we're paid based on minute counts. I was doing the most at 100 minutes a month, and then this guy randomly started and was somehow doing 100 plus minutes despite having school, and his editing always seemed to have different styles. Suspicious. Usually 1 minute of editing takes an hour on average, like I said, very high quality. It turns out that he was hiring people for free to edit and saying he would shout them out on our channel and pay them in exposure. Oh, I assume that the YouTuber was not in on this. He was not aware of this. Needless to say, he was fired, but he's almost known as fucking Voldemort at this point. Yeah, okay. What, so he didn't, like, I think to call it a sweatshop is actually overselling it a little bit. Because at least at a sweatshop, they get paid only a little bit. They get paid a tiny amount of money. This guy, he was just going, oh yeah, I'll pay you an exposure on the channel. I'll pay you an exposure, when he doesn't have the fucking right to do that. And he was just scamming him out of free edits. That's crazy. That's mental. All right, well, we're going to leave it there for this video. Like and subscribe, or I'm going to put you in my sweatshop of editors.